video we discussed about the we discussed about photosynthesis, and then we look at why is it called the redox reaction and the different parts of photosynthesis, which was the light reaction and the dark reaction. And we discussed about what happens in the dark reaction, what happens in the light reaction, and what happens in the dark reaction. Now in this video we're going to discuss and go into detail of what is going on actually in the light reaction. We know that, okay, we use light to convert it into chemical energy. We take water and split it into O2. We eventually end up making ATP and NADPH. But what is the mechanism of which is going through in order that this whole process is being processed? So let's begin. So let's just pick green, no, yellow. Now, so let's begin. The light reaction. Now, as I mentioned in light reaction, so first of all, as I mentioned in the previous video, that we use light energy in it. So, but what is going on? So before we dig in deep into and go into deep study of this, let's just know some of the words and terminologies which we need to know in order to understand. So, light reaction, first of all, where it occurs. It occurs in the membranes of thylakoids. Now, if I were to draw, so you might be wondering about the thylakoid. The thylakoid is this singular structure, this single coin-like structure here. It's called the thylakoid. Now, if I were to draw the membrane of the thylakoid, you will witness these kinds of proteins attached to it. And if you remember from the cellular respiration video, and especially in the electron transporter, you think, oh, it's quite similar to that, and yes, it is. It's actually a lot similar to electron transporter with a little twist in it. So basically there are two kinds of molecules or complex proteins which are the key area where this whole process starts. One is called the PS2, and I'm not talking about PlayStation 2 right here. One is called the PS2 and the other one is called PS1. Now, the photosynthesis, the light reaction, starts from PS2 and goes all the way to PS1. So you might be thinking, okay, then why did they name this PS2 and this PS1? Why not the opposite? The reason is because this one was discovered first. This complex structure was discovered first, so they named it PS1. Later on, they found out, oh, the reaction starts from here, so then they named it PS2. Now, I'm continuously using the word complex structure because I want you to introduce, because there's a specific word for these two things, and it's called a photosystem. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what is a photosystem? Well, photosystem consists of light harvesting molecules, and a light harvesting complex and or molecules, and a reaction center complex. Now these words are really confusing, and reaction center complex. Now you might be thinking, okay, what do they mean? What is their function? Well, the light harvesting complex collects light, and the reaction center complex is where the chlorophyll molecule is present, which helps the reaction to go on. So I don't want to jump too ahead. So just if I were to draw the structure of a photosystem, it would look something like this. Like here you have, so so if I were to draw this, all right, so this is, these are pigments here, and there are two molecules here, and so this structure right here is called the photosystem, and this is this part right here, these half oval shapes, you can view them as so these shapes, like here are the light harvesting complexes. These parts of of this complex, of this photosystem, collect light, and then they pass down this energy into the chlorophyll A molecule, where it excites the electron and passes the electron to the reaction center complex, and this reaction center complex pushes the electron forward for the process to occur. So so there are two photosystems. So I hope you get the idea of photosystem. What are photosystems? They consist of light harvesting complexes and a reaction center complex. So this photosystem right here, so let's just assume that this is called PS2. PS2. And the chlorophyll, so there is a, now these pigments can be anything. They can be either chlorophyll or xanthophyll or carotenoids, and these are just different names for a pigment. Chlorophyll stands for green, xanthophyll yellow, carotenes orange and red shades. So these pigments, the main function of them is to capture light. Now if we look, so this is called photosystem 2. Now the chlorophyll, the pair of chlorophyll which is present in them is what I was about to say, yes, the chlorophyll present in them is called P680. Now you might be wondering, okay, why is it called a P680? And the reason is that it absorbs the light best, which has a wavelength of 680 nanometers. Now if you love physics, or you're interested in optics, or if you're an optician or somehow, you know that what is the light. Light is light is a form of energy, and it has two kinds of properties. It has particle properties and wave properties. So if you just concentrate on the wave properties, we would know that a wave, basically a wave, has these two regions right here. This is called the crest, this is called the trough, and I don't want to go to physics into it, but the consecutive distance between the two crests or the two troughs, or if I were to start here, go all the way down and up here, it's the same distance as I'm taking these two or these two. So this distance right here is called the wavelength. So if a light has a wavelength of 680 nanometers, I mean from distance here to here in nanometers, it's really small. It absorbs, this pair of chlorophyll absorbs the best light, which has this 680 nanometers of wavelength. So that's why it's called the P680, and the PS1 is actually called P700, which means it can absorb the light best at the wavelength of 700 nanometers. So alright. So if I were to so this is the photosystem. Now we are, I hopefully think we are ready to begin the photosynthesis light reaction part. So if you begin, a light ray, a ray of light, or a photon is just an energy, a bunch packets of energy, which is also light, and it's a particle. So just as I said, light is also called, sometimes viewed as a particle, and as well as light, as well as wave. So if a photon comes and strikes one of these pigments, it excites the electron in that pigment, and that electron is said to be in an excited state. And what do you mean by that excited state? Because it means that it's unstable, it has a lot of energy in it, and it wants to get rid of that energy. So what this does is that it passes that energy. So if I were to just label it, so if I were to pick another color, so it passes that energy from one pigment to another pigment, and that pigment's electron gets excited, and as it cools down, it passes that energy to another pigment, and it keeps going on and on until they reach And this is all the membranes of the thylakoid right here. So this is the membrane we are studying. So as it reaches this pair of chlorophyll molecules, it excites the electron of this chlorophyll molecule, and the electron jumps to this molecule, this square or something shape, some shape like that. It looks like a square. This molecule, the electron is accepted by this molecule, which is called the primary electron acceptor. So this molecule right here is called the primary electron acceptor. So now you can you see you were able to, so you, if you notice that this, if this chlorophyll molecule right here, these two circles right here, if they loses the electron, so who's going to make up for that electron? That's the place where water plays its roles. So water, these hydrogen, the water is eventually is oxidized, it loses its hydrogen as well as the electrons with that hydrogen. So if I were to, I think I can write the equation for that too. It would be 2 protons plus 2 electrons and plus half of the oxygen molecule. Yep, it's balanced. Yeah, I think this would be the equation for that. So here we have 2 electrons and 2 protons. So these 2 electrons replace this electron which it lost, which the chlorophyll molecule lost here, and the primary electron acceptor passes that electron which is in high excited state down to the next complexes. And here, which is the process which we discussed in the previous videos, it's the electron transport chain. What now, if just for the review of what's going on here, so this electron moves from here to here, and as it's moving, it's going from one complex to another complex, releasing some of its energy as it's going to the next complex. And as he is doing that, these complexes, it gives them enough energy to pump hydrogen ions. Remember, hydrogen here, we also get the hydrogen from here, and there are also some hydrogen ions in the membrane. So we get these hydrogen ions. So these hydrogen ions transfer from this part of the membrane to another part. And how is it happening? Because these electrons, as they are going from one complex to another complex, the electron is giving its energy away to these complexes right here, and these complexes are using that energy to move hydrogen protons from one part of the membrane to another part of the membrane. And as they are doing that, it creates a gradient. So the hydrogen protons are a lot in this part of the membrane. There is a lot of quantity of hydrogen protons in this part of the membrane. So now they have a lot of potential energy in store, because there's a lot, and all of these are positive. So you can imagine that they are sort of stuck here. They can't go back. They cannot diffuse and go back because the membrane isn't allowing them to go through. So like in the previous video we just discussed, they go through another molecule which we call the ATP synthase. And this is just all just a review of what happens in the electron transport, and it's quite similar. So these hydrogen protons go through this complex right here, and as they are going through this complex, it's causing this complex to rotate, and as it's rotating, it's sort of like a milkshake. When you're making a milkshake, you're putting everything in it and just pushing the button, it mixes everything up. So it's mixing ADP plus P molecule plus phosphate group, and it's eventually giving us an ATP. So that is where I think where I mentioned, oops, where is it? Yeah, here, when I mentioned that we get an ATP molecule. And so we were able to generate water, we eventually converted light into energy, into chemical energy, and now we gained ATP. So the last part which is remaining is this NADP plus here. So let's move on. So this is the electron transport chain. Now notice that these electrons are not accepted by oxygen as they did in the electron transport chain. So because if they would have been accepted by oxygen, then the process wouldn't be able to continue. And the other thing is that the electrons are still on very high energy state. They haven't lost enough energy. They are not even stabilized to combine with oxygen. And furthermore, the oxygen which lost its electrons which lost its hydrogen right here, it combines with another oxygen atom and becomes O2 and leaves the plant, so that we are breathing right now. Oh yes, I think so. So these electrons, so where were we? Yes, so these electrons are going from higher energy state to lower energy state, and they're traveling from complex to complex. So now there is another complex right here, and I'm trying to draw it similar to that. And so these are the light harvesting complexes, and this is the reaction center right here. Now what happening is that as this electron going from I'm going from here, going from this photosystem to this photosystem, another ray of photon or light comes and strikes one of these pigments right here, and same process happens again. So it jumps from higher energy state to lower energy state, higher energy state to lower energy state, and now now instead of taking an oxygen, so there is a chlorophyll molecule, and they are called the P700, just for the reminder. So now instead of these electrons are coming right down this way. So now instead of getting another water molecule and taking its hydrogen away, what this photosystem does is that it takes the electrons which are traveling from here to all the way down here. So as it takes that electron, and the light energy comes and it boosts up. My point is that the light energy boosts these electrons in the chlorophyll A molecule up, and in order to cover that electron, cover the loss for that electron, they don't take the water molecule, they take the electrons which are coming down from this whole electron transport chain, and they gain the electron here. So they don't usually use water in this part, and the electrons which they first lost to this reaction center, it eventually passes it down to another complex, another molecule, not a complex, sorry, another molecule which we call NADP+, and these molecules are reduced to NADPH. So hopefully I didn't confuse you. So just for the reminder, light comes in, it strikes the pigment's energy, electrons goes into the higher energy state, and as it's going into the lower and lower energy state, it jumps from this energy is transforming from one molecule to another, and eventually reaches this chlorophyll molecule. The energy strikes the chlorophyll molecule, it boosts up the electron, they go to the reaction center complex. So in order to fulfill the need for this electron which it lost, it uses the water molecules. So it has gained its electrons. So these electrons which it first lost, it goes from the electron transport chain, as it going from this complex to another, it's creating a gradient which causing the hydrogen ions to be pumped on the other side of the membrane. These pumped ions go back through the ATP synthase to generate ATP, and as this electron is going from one complex to another, another beam of photon comes and strikes the PS1 or the P700, and the same process happens. It goes into the higher energy state, it's going into lower and lower energy state, and as the energy is not going from lower and lower, it's being transferred from one pigment to another, and as it strikes this part of the chlorophyll, the P700 chlorophyll, it boosts the electron up, and it's accepted by this reaction center. And instead of using the water molecule like this one did, it just takes the electron from it just takes the electron which has been going through this whole process right here, and the electron which the reaction center complex took, it passes it down to the NADP+, which is eventually reduced to NADPH. Remember, reducing means to gaining electrons and hydrogens with the electrons. So this is pretty much it. So hope you found that useful, and in the next video we're going to discuss about the Kelvin cycle, or the dark reaction which is happening. and eventually these two molecules, the ATP and the NADPH, are used for making this Calvin cycle, this process, to occur. So see you in the next video.